So anyway, just wait. Oh, that's it. Are we live? That's okay. We'll cut that in post. By the way, Jeff, I'm so sorry. I make that joke every episode at the
It's
beginning of
all
the
right, dude.
episode, and I
It's
didn't prepare
okay.
you for it. I really apologize. That's my shtick. Um, we'll cut that in post. We'll cut that whole segment in post. Welcome everybody to Dancing Dragons Live.
What's up?
I'm Coach Eli. This here's Jeff Blake. Um, Dancing Dragons Live is Dancing Dragons, a weekly show where you get to hear from real coaches talking about real facts that affect your real life. Okay. And
Hmm.
you can go to DancingDragons.CC, the DancingDragons.CC. The CC stands for Coaching Collective. Go to DancingDragons.CC and you can book an appointment to be matched with the perfect coach for you. At Dancing Dragons, we literally have hundreds of coaches on the books, all kinds of niches, all kinds of specialties, anything that you're looking to improve in, get better at, or just get, a coach in, right? We have that, right? So Dancing Dragons will get you to where you want to go, whatever your goals are. So go to DancingDragons.CC, book your appointment now, start the new you. Tonight we got a fantastic episode planned. All right. So it's the topic that's most near and dear to my heart, which is parenting, right? And we've only had like one episode about parenting so far, and it was focused on the stages of childhood development. So this one's like a little bit more niche, right? We're going to be talking about peaceful parenting and foster parenting today. So really cool. If you've never heard the term peaceful parenting, check it out. It's not as complicated as it looks. It's not. It seems simple, or it seems simple, but like when you hear about it, some people get a little bit frazzled. So we're not here to judge anybody. Don't get upset if we say something. We're not saying anybody's a bad parent, okay? Nothing like that. We're just giving our ideas on how we perceive parenting and
Hmm.
trying to pass them on to you. So even if you don't agree with us, you can at least hear a different perspective. There's a judgment-free zone here, and so let's get in it. So Jeff, thanks for coming on the show. This is your first time on Dancing Dragons Live, so
Yep.
I really appreciate it. Jeff, would you mind telling the viewers a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself.
Yeah. So I am a parent of 6 kids. Uh, Long story short, my wife and I couldn't have kids, and we wanted to start a family, and we realized like foster care is an option. So we became foster parents. And in that 8 year span, we had 13 kids coming to our home and take care of them. And we decided to adopt 5 of them in that time. And then after adopting our fifth, uh, we had a little present of 8 years of trying, and then here came number six. And
Oh,
so, yeah, that's the
wow! That's
yeah.
congratulations. That's a beautiful story. I think that parenting is probably the most important thing a person can do, and I just think
Yeah.
that's fantastic. I'm blown away by just that story, that you were so passionate about it, that you got into foster parenting. That's like a big step. There's a lot of responsibility that comes onto that, and that's like, forgive the analogy, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it's like, it's like adopting a dog from the pound. You don't know what you're getting. There can be a lot of problems that come with that kid, so that's a huge undertaking. That is just the biggest act of love I can think of, right? Like,
Hmm.
I like so me and my grandmother, we've always kind of like butted heads, like growing up. She loves me now, but when I was a kid, I was her least favorite, right? Like, she could not stand me, right? And she used to like treat me pretty poorly when I was a kid, which actually kind of goes into this whole conversation about peaceful parenting. But so she used to treat me very poorly when I was a kid, and it really hurt me, right? But like, when I was already an adult, something that really helped me like forgive her for that was, she wanted to get a dog, and she went to the pound and she asked for the most vicious dog. Like, she was like, "Give me the most vicious one," because she knew nobody else was going to take him. And I was like, wow, like that's some, like, this is a woman in her 70s asking for the most vicious dog in the pound. Like, that's crazy, right? I was like, wow,
Respect.
that's some G stuff right there. So I was like, that really made me like respect her in a way that I had never really seen before. It was so interesting. So anyway, so I never compared children to animals, by the way. I can't stand the whole I'm a dog mom thing. I
Oh
hate that.
man.
So I don't, no offense if you say that at home. Again, this is a judgment free zone. I'm just saying personally, it makes me cringe. So I didn't mean to do that. I was just saying like the dynamic is similar where it's like, you don't know what you're getting. And I mean, I used to work with special needs kids. Like some of them just had, some of them had like mental disorders or like some sort of developmental disorders. And then others just were just had behavioral issues. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I had like 12-year-old kid pull a knife on me. Like I've had to deal with a whole bunch of that stuff. So and you don't know what to do. So what's been your experience with being a foster parent? Have you had any like really big problems? And how did you deal with that? Or and you don't have to say anything specifically, obviously.
Yeah. So one thing that a lot of people might struggle with, and I don't know if this is a foster parent. I will say at this point, most of my kids were adopted, but a lot of my kids were adopted during the heroin epidemic and all of that stuff. And so a lot of kids were removed from homes because they were in conditions where the parents were not fit. But one thing you do realize is everyone has trauma. All of the kids have trauma. And a lot of that, if they're real little, don't play out until they hit probably second or third grade, first grade. And it just depends. Things like ADHD and things like that, mental focus or any disorders, you don't realize those things are playing out when they're really little. And then you're like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. It's kind of scary on one hand, but you also have to
Mhm.
think, okay, I'm an adult. I'm going to stay
Mhm.
regulated because that was one of the biggest things. The agency we were with were called therapeutic foster homes. And so
Mhm.
we were given, I don't want to say the worst of the worst, but it wasn't like the easiest cases. And a lot of our training as foster parents was understanding the brain and how that works and the why, and then how we are to stay regulated in those moments. Because if you have a dysregulated person who's full of trauma and you as an adult is dysregulated, that's a mess. So yeah.
Word. I totally agree with that. And so we were talking before the show started, and you had mentioned how like as a foster parent, you're not allowed to
Hmm.
like put your hands on the kid
No,
in any kind of
absolutely not.
disciplinary way, right? Like that's totally forbidden, right? And so what's really funny is peaceful parenting, and let me just introduce that idea right now, right?
Hmm.
Peaceful parenting is this radical idea that you shouldn't hit your kids. Now, it sounds crazy at first because it's like 93% of parents admit to hitting their kids sometimes, something like that. Um, there are tons of studies that show that hitting your children um, does not actually improve behavior. It actually makes the behavior worse. And
Hmm.
it also shows that like parents who just even normal spanking, we're not talking about like hardcore abuse, right? Even just normal spanking lowers your child's IQ, right?
Wow.
Parents that just do that, right? So there's a lots of studies on it. It's something that has been studied for like 40 years now.
Hmm.
There's studies that have involved tens of thousands of children being followed their entire lives, right? So it's really good science. And there, like again, we've had episodes on this too, where we are in a replication crisis. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Jeff. The replication crisis is that over 70% of scientific experiments cannot be replicated, which means
Mm.
if they can't be replicated, that's just garbage science, right?
Yeah.
So it means it was never science to begin with. They just did something unscientifically, put a paper on it, and pretended like it was scientific, right? If you can't replicate it, it's not science, right? That's just It's a fact, right? So, so, and by the way, like a lot of people, when you say that, and me too, it took me years of knowing about the replication crisis before I found out this fact. A lot of people, when you say it, you think, oh, it's social sciences, obviously. It's all these psychologists in these colleges saying crazy stuff, doing these trumped up experiments, and then like getting the results that they want. No. Chemistry is one of the worst ones. Chemistry has like a 78% like non-replicable rate. So it's across the board in science. It's just a huge deterioration in our academic standards entirely across the board, even in STEM. So really important. So a lot of times, you got to take these studies with a grain of salt. But if any studies can be trusted, ones that are done over 40 years with tens of thousands of subjects are going to be the most. But also, I've lived it. Like I've put it into practice, right? So, like I said, I used to be a HBTS worker. That's home-based therapeutic services, right? And so I would go to children's homes. A lot of them that I dealt with had autism or they had some sort of behavioral issue. But like even like I had patients with like young kids with severe autism, right? That would act out, and everybody would tell you at the agency, they'd be like, no, you got to grab him. You got to restrain him. He's going to run out the door. He's going to run into the street. You got to restrain him. Not me. I didn't restrain nobody. I mean, you had to sometimes, like when their life's being threatened or something, or they're in danger in any way, you do it, right? But not until then. And the kid was I'm thinking of one in particular, but throughout the whole time, I was always the best with these kids. And so like my supervisor would come, who has all these degrees about this stuff, and she'd be like, no, you got to grab him like this and put his arm like this. And I'm like, no, I don't do that. Like, I just say like, no, like, and the kid would listen to me, would not listen to anybody else. So not even his own mom. Like, and like this one kid, like that I'm thinking of, was nobody could get this kid to do anything except for me. And I literally was the only one who didn't grab him and pull him and tug on him. And so, and it was something I was trying to explain to my supervisor, and she felt offended by this, right? Because like this is her job and it's her livelihood. I understand the emotional attachment here. When somebody who doesn't have a degree in your field comes in and you got like a PhD or something, and then they're like, no, you're wrong, and then you're like, what do you mean? Like, like I understand the dynamic. All right. I'm not an idiot, like I get it. Right. So I tried to very gently explain to her. I was like, listen, like this is a big kid. Like he's probably going to be like 6'2", 6'3", like he's a big kid. It's like, do you really want to teach him that when people don't do what you want, you grab them and force them? Like, is that really what you want to teach the kid? Like,
that's so true.
Like, because that's what kids don't learn from what you tell them. They learn from what you show them. Right. And so when you solve your problems with violence, you're showing them a few things. You're showing them that when people don't listen to you, you use violence. And then you're also showing them that, you will use violence on them if they don't listen to you. Like
that's so real.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like, and then like we have fractious relationships with our children growing up. And it's like, well, you didn't negotiate with me. And by the way, and that there's this flip side. I totally forgot this too. There's another bonus side. So before you guys, by the way, share the video, comment in the comment section. Tell me if I'm wrong or something like that. Don't run away from the stream because I'm offending you. Again, this is a no judgment free zone. I'm just trying to get out a different idea, right? I understand I was hit when I was a kid. Almost everybody I know was hit when they were kids. I don't think my mom was a terrible parent, right? So I'm not judging you either. I was hit pretty bad too. It wasn't even like a little bit. Like, my mom was not an abusive person, but as far as like normal parenting goes, I have some stories, right? So
we all do. We all do.
My mom was a single mother of 7, so she had to manage that somehow. So anyway, so before you run away, right? Just understand, I'm not throwing any shade here, right? I'm just trying to put out some information that might help you down the line, right? And And so anyway, like, so can you tell me about your experience? Because you'd never really thought about as like peaceful parenting, but that's what you did, right? So how's that going?
So I I think because of our kids, and you got to work backwards when you have kids that have trauma in their life. You have to first understand the trauma and realize, like, okay, like one of the biggest things we learned is triggers. So
Mhm.
there's just certain things you had to be aware of, like, and this could be sad. So like, there's a there's an example I could use. Like, so like if some child was inappropriately touched, what if like brushing their hair, which was be normal, maybe that's a trigger for a child. And so you would really have to be aware of those things and like be and think. You would have to overly intentionally think about your parenting, about, okay, I'm about to brush this kid's hair. Is this a trigger? I'm about to do this. Is this a trigger? And really be aware of all of the things. And ironically, we actually adopted a couple newborns, so at least those those things. But there were other things later on because of why they were removed from mom that presented themselves in later age. But as a parent and in that environment, you just and when they're little, it's a lot easier to manage kids. When it's a 2 and 3-year-old, yeah, they're gonna do the thing, and you're just like, okay, cool. You're not gonna freak me out. I understand what you're doing. You're
Mhm.
not getting what you're gonna want, and you're just responding out of frustration. You don't have words, so you're gonna do that.
Mhm.
You're gonna get tired. You're gonna get worn down. You're like, okay, are you done? All right, now let's go do the thing we need to do. Um, that's a lot of it, and just being aware that we're creating the habits they're having. Like, I
Mhm.
realize with in parenting was so kids trust, right? When a kid is like brand new, there is all trust there. Everything is trust. And what happens is, and what I've realized is, we as parents, we start to erode the trust. So like they might allow, how do I want to say this? They might give us something that's tender or
Mhm.
sensitive or important information, and then we weaponize it. And then whether we realize it or not, there's a fracture each time we do that. And then you're wondering, why won't my kid come to me? Why won't they have a conversation with me? Why doesn't my teenager trust me? Why doesn't my middle schooler trust me? Well, they gave you something. And then what you did with it, you said, nope, you can't do that.
Mhm.
And a lot of it's just having conversations, especially
Yeah,
once they get to conversation age. I realized
yeah,
that, especially with
it's
my older kid.
yeah. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
you're good. No, I realized a lot
Yeah.
of that once it was like, hey, what's going on? And it took time because I have a 20-year-old, so like I've had him move out, and I still have an 8-year-old, so I'm still learning continuously. And two middle schoolers, which are the best.
You guys hear that? All right. So Jeff has a 20-year-old, right? So that means he started foster parenting when he was like, I don't know, 12 years old or something like that. So big like for Jeff down in the down on the video. Make sure that you comment. You gotta tell me about this like fountain of youth that you found. So I'm getting the grays in the beard. The grays in the beard are what screw you. That's really what happens.
I got a couple
I
right
went
here.
from I like for a while I would only cut out the grays because there was just like a couple little patches here, right? But like once it came in full, like I'm not scared of aging, like I don't care, right? But like once it came in like more even, I was like, yeah, I can rock this. But I had no idea that like people were gonna go from thinking I was 28 years old to being like 50. Like they were just like overnight. They were just like, I do this thing. I always ask people like, oh, how old do you think I am, or something. If they ever ask me, I'm like, well, how old do you think I am? Right? I've always gotten way younger, and then as soon as I got these grays, everybody overshoots now, and I'm like, man, like, I really got. See, if I go like this, I look younger, right? Like I look.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so anyways, I digress. So yeah, I mean, what were we talking about here? We were talking about how yeah, the effects of, yeah, so here's the thing, right? It's like when you are reacting to like a tantrum or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are showing your child how to react when they're upset, right?
Totally.
Like that, you're demonstrating it, right? So if you get frazzled, like that's like the
Mm-hmm.
worst thing that you can do. Like even, and it starts young. Now, Jeff, for most of your kids, unfortunately, you didn't have the option, right, to start young, right? But like, it like you, this is like a building block, right? And so like you had to deal with like building blocks that were already in place, and like,
Correct.
you know, God bless you for that, because like that's real difficult to do. Now, if you guys can check out our other video on childhood development, that was like really interesting. We went through like the stages, right? And Jeff was bringing up the trust thing, right? So that's stage 1 actually of childhood development. And we know that that kind of gets not cemented in, but very difficult to change after like the age of 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very difficult to change, right? So typically speaking, like you have a secure attachment or an insecure attachment or avoidant or something like that at that age, and it's just like that's how they're going to be for basically their whole life, right? Now,
So
again,
true.
you can change things. Nothing's ever a lost cause. I'm a Christian. I don't believe in lost causes, right? St. Jude. But the point is that it becomes like very, very structured in. So at the beginning, like, you know, basically your child is, you're talking about trust. Your child is looking to see if they can trust you with their basic needs, right? So like when they're hungry, do they have food, right? Like when they're sleepy, are you comforting them? When they get hurt, are you comforting them? Like, you know, and so as long as you're there, you don't need to bat 1,000, right? You don't need to be there 100% of the time. Basically, you'll get a secure attachment, right? If you're there 80% of the time, 75% of the time. People have put out statistics. I would say take those statistics with a grain of salt. It's probably different depending on who the person is, right? Each person is an individual after all. We're not just robots with inputs and CPUs, right? So, but the point is that that as long as you're there consistent enough and you give a good effort, right, your kid will see that, right, and then they will trust that, and they'll say, "Oh, you know what? Like my kid, like I have a 1.5-year-old, and I know that's the only kid I have. I've never been a foster parent, but I have worked with a lot of kids in the past doing HPTS, and then also, you know, I've always just like babysat, like, and I'm the middle child of 7, so like I always babysat my younger siblings growing up, and then my sister, she's a lot younger than me. I used to change her diapers and everything as a kid. I used to babysit her while my mom was working. And then, you know, throughout my whole life, I was in the army, and like a lot of people, like I became known as the baby whisperer in the army. So like everybody would have me babysit. Like, and so like I've spent a lot of time around kids, right? I'm really good with kids. Everybody who knows me knows that, right? So I'm not just talking on my ass. I know, hey, if you don't believe me, put it in the comment section. Just say like, yeah, we'll see, and talk to me in 5 years about how easy this is or whatever. You know, I get it. No, I get it. Right. So, but the point is, right, is that like my son, like I've spent so much time like really trying to foster that secure attachment and that trust. Like he gets reckless when I'm around. Like he'll just like try to like walk off the side of the couch, you know, like, and he won't do it, by the way. He won't do it if I'm away from him. Like he has no like he'll be real nervous about it. But if I'm next to him, he's like, "Oh, my dad's not gonna let me fall. I can do whatever I want." So I mean, I think it's a good problem to have, right? But it does present its own difficulties here, right? So, but yeah, so that secure attachment and that trust, you got to build that. And what I have found though, right? And so for anybody watching this and they're thinking like, oh, I messed up the secure attachment thing, or I'm a foster parent too, so I don't have the option, or I'm a step parent and I don't have the option, or something like that,
That's
right?
real.
Yeah, I mean, it's just life, you know. So here's the thing. I have found that the children in my life adapt very well to these ideas, right? When kids find out I don't believe in hitting kids, like their mind is blown. They're like, that's an option, you know, right? And so I'm my wife is Haitian, right? And so her family can be like, you know, pretty strict. They don't necessarily follow the beliefs I follow, right? And you got to deal with that. You know, diversity is our strength. Um, and so what happens, right, is that, you know, diversity is real. Like people live their lives differently, and you got to deal with that, right? And so like I have like my wife is like, for whatever reason, everybody's godmother, right? So I have like all these like kind of like step godchildren, like they're all like around the ages of like 8 and like 12 or something. When they find out that like I don't hit kids, like they're like, what? And then they got to test me, right? They got to like see like, oh, like what's he gonna do, right? You know. But like when I tell them that, because I used to openly talk to them, right? Because that's what you should do. You know, I was like, no, I don't believe in hitting kids. And then they'll be like, what do you mean you don't believe? I'll be like, no, I don't think it's okay to do that. And they'll be like, and then they'll like ask me about it, you know, and like they get real curious. But then they try to test me, like, how can I get him to hit me? Like, can I do it? Can I do it? And like, so they'll try to test me. But like they learn and they respect it immediately. Like it's just like very quickly, just a couple of tests, and then they're like, oh no, he's legit not going to hit me. And it becomes like a huge like bastion of respect that comes with that. So have you, I mean, I know that you may not, like me, I'm like a zealot, right? Because like I learned about peaceful parenting.
Yeah.
And I got convinced that it was the right thing to do. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to like start incorporating this. Right. And by the way, I'm not innocent. I've hit kids in the past when I was younger. Right. Like, because I thought that was the right thing. You know, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I was told spare the rod, spoil the child, whole thing.
Yeah.
Now that's how I grew up. Right. So like, don't think I'm like out here like, not knowing anything and never changed my mind. No. I evaluate this as an adult and I changed my ways, right? But like, and I would just say, if you are a Christian, I don't mean to mock Christianity by saying like the spare the rod, spoil the child thing. I do want to make this point, right? That verse does not mean that you should hit your kids. It doesn't mean that at all. And I know a lot of people interpret it as that, including men of the cloth, and I don't want to disrespect your priest or your pastor or your reverend or whoever, but I would just say, think about this. Spare the rod, right? So why are we talking about rods, right? Because we're talking about sheep herders, right? They have rods. Have you ever seen a sheep herder like take the rod and like haul off and swing and whack a sheep? That's not what you do with a rod. Okay, you hold up the rod and treat it like a boundary. It's a portable fence.
Yep,
that's like what it is. So yeah, exactly. You keep them on the right path. That's what the rod is. So if you don't keep your child on the right path, then the child will get spoiled. Sheep herders never beat their sheep with the rod. Okay, so the analogy is not, hey, you should hit your kid. Okay. So please rethink that. Just think about that for a second. And then I want you to imagine, if you're a Christian at least, Jesus hitting like a 3-year-old kid, right? Because by the way, a lot of parents admit to hitting kids starting at 8 months, right? So like, I know it seems very young, but that's when a lot of parents say that they start. So, so like 3 years, like imagine Jesus just whacking a 3-year-old. I don't think that you can even imagine it, right? So I'm just saying, I'll throw those two things out there. Now, so Jeff, in your situation, right, being a foster parent, right? have you seen this dynamic? I know that you weren't like a zealot like me, right? You were kind of like forced into this, not to say that you were unwilling. Obviously you were willing, right? But
Yeah,
like
of course.
the not hitting rule, right? I don't know if you grew up or if you're open to talking about that, if you got hit or if you thought that that was the right thing. But somebody told you at the foster parent like organization, they were like, no,
Nah,
right?
dude. Yeah.
How do you
First
feel
off,
about that? Like, did you find it difficult at first? Like, would it have been in your repertoire if you hadn't been told no?
so there's
And
like
then
a
and then what about the results? Have you seen a result where like kids kind of like seem more relaxed?
well, growing up, just like most kids of my generation, like you got either a belt or the hand. Luckily, the switches were done. There were no switches. No switches. No switches. But yeah, that part of it, I'm also pain averting. I don't like pain. I don't
Mm,
like it. So, is that a natural deterrent for me? Yeah, because I don't like it. Like you ain't
mm.
okay, mom. I'm going that way. Yep, no problem. I was easy. I would say I was easy, and my mom would say there's probably on one hand how many times she ever had to do that because I don't like pain. Um, growing like thinking about it, growing up, I was not. Um, I will say I'm not. I wasn't opposed to it. Obviously, once you become a foster parent, that's an absolute no, no, no,
Mm,
not even an option. It's like the idea of you just got to shut certain things down to where
mhm,
it's not an option. So, okay, what are my options? Let's be honest. And the agency taught us like how do you how do you get a kid to do the things you need them to do? And there are also like there is the possibility of kids running out. Like once they're older, I didn't have many older kids. That's a different situation. I'm not taking care of any of that. But even once all my kids, once they were all foster kids and adopted, once they were all adopted, um, there is no, I never found a benefit to it. Um, Especially my daughters, they don't, it doesn't work for them. It doesn't work
mm,
for any of my kids. And most of it, and my mom was, I will say my mom was wonderful. Most of it outside of once I was younger and I was done with that, we would just have conversations. And she would ask me like, "Jeff, why'd you do that?" And that's
mhm,
what I've adopted as a parent. And I like to look at parenting as stages. Um, and on some level, you become a coach. Like as a middle, like my middle school kids, I'm their parent, but I'm also their coach. And then once
mhm,
my kids, my 20-year-old, I'm his consultant. I'm his consultant as a
mhm,
parent. Hey, how you doing? How's things going? How's that working out? You good? All right. You got any problems? No? All right, cool. If you have problems, here's some options as a consultant. Choose an option. Right now, my middle schoolers, I'm a coach. I'm like, all right, dude. And I will say one of my kids is a little, he's he's really challenging. Very challenging. And I am his coach like 24/7. I'm like, dude, all right, what are you doing right now, bro? What are you doing? What just happened? And most of it is identify the emotion, understand why I feel this way, and how do
mhm,
I, all right, now that you've felt this emotion, how does that make you feel? What's going on? Is this is this how you want to feel in this moment? No. All right. How do we get from this emotion that you're feeling? Let's get to a place of resolve. All right. What do we need to do to resolve the situation? Do you need to go apologize to someone? Do you need this one thing he loves to do? And I'm like, oh my gosh, one of his coping mechanism is dumping water on his head. He loves it. He's a boy, of
okay,
course. So,
okay,
I would say it doesn't work, especially if if you know the temperature of your kids, if and I probably like annoy my kids because I'll tell them I study you. I literally
mhm.
study you like a book.
Mhm.
And if you know the temperature of your kids and understand who they are, I would just call it good parenting and just being aware. What I lead a dad's like a group, and I encourage them. And I remember the last thing we were meeting weekly, and the last thing I said is to be present and be aware. And if you do
Mhm.
like to put your phone down, be present and see and be aware of the situation. And if you do those things enough, you don't have to work at the relationship with your kid. And two of the guys have two 2-year-olds, and actually they were born, I think they were a few months apart, actually. And I I take it as a privilege that all of my mistakes, because I've made so many, I get to tell these two young men with these two little boys, hey, do start these now. Like my son's 20. I wish
Mhm.
someone said he wasn't he was 7 when he came into my care. But even when he was 7, said to me, do these things, follow these steps, be aware, be present. I wish someone was like, Jeff, come here, bud. Come here. Let me help you out. So, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I mean, that's more or less the meat and potatoes of it. I would say like, um, did you ever did you ever see a situation? It might have been difficult, right? Because you had some older kids come into your care, right? And so it's
Mhm.
like, did you see like I don't know what their backgrounds are, but I can presume not the best, at least,
Not the
right?
best.
And
No. No.
like I said before,
No.
93 parents admit to hitting their kids. So that doesn't even count the parents that hit their kids so badly that they won't even admit it out loud, right?
Oh my
Like
gosh.
so yeah, right. So it's probably only 5% of parents, 1 out of 20, right, that don't actually hit their kids. And then a lot of them, by the way, are probably very permissive, which is another problem in and of itself.
Yeah.
Right. So good parenting, I always say good parenting is rare, right? It's very, very rare. And I know it's like comparatively, right? Comparatively, it's like, well, like, where are you comparing it to, right? So when you have
Mhm.
any kind of qualitative analysis, right? It's like objective and then compared to what,
Mhm.
right? Like, and so compared to what, it's like you can be very good parent and make all these mistakes that we might be saying. It doesn't change the fact that those are mistakes, right? Like,
Mhm.
and so one thing that I really like to hear was like that you like talk to your kids that way, right? Like, I think a lot of people forget that kids are people too, right? And it's like if you think that no, seriously, it's true. Like it's like
They do.
if you think back to like what you thought of your parents when you were a kid, right? Like you're gonna be like, oh yeah, that's not really the dynamic I think I feel with my kid. You know, it's
Mhm.
like I was very forgiving. If my mom did something that like made me feel bad, I'll be like, she's trying her best. There's 7 of us, like I said that as a kid, like, but if I know in my situation, even like just emotionally, I would feel like if I ever let my kid down, I'd be like, oh no, like,
Yeah.
but you gotta understand that your kid's gonna be forgiving about that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
Um, so I would just say like it's really good to have these conversations and just be open about who you are with them, right? And I think a
Yeah.
lot of parents feel like they have to play a character, like, oh, I'm this parent. So when your kid says, oh, why? You go, oh, don't worry about it, right? Because you want to embody that like persona of like
Mhm.
the parent that knows what they're doing. I'm in control. If I let these kids go and start asking me my mentality about things, then they're
Mhm.
gonna go off the rails. It's not like that at all, right? It's so I think probably the most important like benefit of peaceful parenting. And I think that this is, and again, some of the peaceful parent activists out there, they'll probably get upset for me at me for saying this, but like I don't think that spanking actually lowers your child's IQ. Maybe like very abusive ones, right? Like very. I think that there is a correlation. I think that when you spank your child, you negotiate with them less. I think teaching your children to negotiate is one of the most important things to teach your
Mhm.
child. And if
Yeah.
you are a parent that says, because I said so. And again, my mom used to say it all the time. I'm not saying that you're a bad parent.
So did
I think that
mine.
my mom was a pretty good mom, right? I'm just saying it's a comparative versus objective, right? And so, like, objectively, that's just a bad thing to say to your kid, right? Now, there are parents that do a lot worse, and everybody does the best with the information that they're given. That's why I'm giving you this information now, so you don't make that mistake. But I would just say, in my opinion, it's objectively a bad thing to say. Like, there's never a reason to say, because I said so, right? And what you're doing is that you're not letting your child understand your thought process as an adult. They're going to become an adult, right? Like, how are they going to know what the thought process is if you don't tell them, right? Now, I know not everybody's very patient, you know. Maybe I've been blessed with a certain amount of patience for children. I think that sometimes is the case, right? But I understand it can be annoying and frustrating when your kids, especially if you're upset or you're frustrated or you're upset about something, and like you're just like really frustrated with your kid, and you're like, you don't want to explain yourself, right? But just think about it, stop, take a second, and realize you're teaching them, like, you're not teaching them how to be an adult. You're not teaching them, and that's the goal of parenting, is teaching them how to be an adult, right? So
that is true.
And so, like, when you teach your kids to negotiate, I think that makes your kids smarter. It helps them develop their brain, right? So, like, I know people who I argue with sometimes about hitting kids, right? And they have kids. They have more kids than me. Their kids are older, right? So they feel very justified of me. And like, bro, like, I've been there, done that. You have a 1-year-old. Like, get out of here, right? You know, like, I totally get that mentality. At the same time, I don't think that those are bad parents, right? At least the people I'm talking about specifically, right? What I know is that when they would hit their kids, they'd always be like, now, why did I do it? And they would have conversations. And those conversations are what's so important, right? And so it's the parents that hit their kids, and then, like, I don't have to explain nothing. You're just going to do what I say when I say it, and that's it. That's when you start seeing the drop in IQ, because the kid's not getting an opportunity to work their brain in that way. Is there anything that you think about that?
No, I think so. I will say, have I ever spanked my kid at some point? Yes, I have. One of my kids, or at some point. I don't like it. I remember my mom, she used to say this. She would say to me, I never liked spanking you because of the face that you would make. I was like, man, Mom, you're so compassionate and loving. I love you so much. But I do remember there was always this process of, please, there was always a not a I'm doing this because I hurt you or you're wrong. It was, do you understand the why I had to go to that extreme? And I'm like, there's always a processing no matter what. I think, like you said, we are raising adults. I think when you think of it that way, as a parent, it makes you, or it forces you to have to think about, okay, how am I raising this person to go into the real world? And one thing you did say, so the whole because I said so, I have like my own version of that. So it's
Okay.
like, all right. So sometimes with my son, I'm like, JJ, I need you to do this. All right. Just please trust me that I'm doing this for your benefit. And I know you might not understand it, but I'm going to if you have questions, feel free to ask me later, but I need you to do this right now. I don't ever want to never have my kid have the space to ask me a question for understanding. Like the seek to understand idea. We don't seek to just get the information across. We seek for understanding. So in parenting, you also have to think you're training your kids to be parents, not just be adults. So it's like, how do I think of legacy all the time as a dad? So I think of the generational things that I broke in my family, like just single mom, single mom, single mom, single mom, single mom. I'm the break of single moms, dad not around. My dad wasn't around, my mom's dad, and just go so and so. And I don't know, call it some type of just dropping on me as a kid. But whatever it is, I've always had that mindset of why are we doing this? What is the benefit of why we're doing this? And all of the things I do, and it probably annoys my wife to an extent because it's like, why are you so philosophical at 5:30 in the morning? And I'm like, because if I don't do this thing, it's gonna cause me
Yeah.
to do XYZ. Um, but that is real. Like people act without thinking all the t-
Hmm.
all the time,
Yeah.
all the time.
I mean,
So,
I like to think like I actively I'm like a very like what do you call it? Like I do things very much like for a reason. Like I think a lot. Like I really think things out. There's a word for it. I can't find it right now. But like very deliberate. I'm a very
yes,
deliberate
yes,
person,
or
right?
intentional.
I'm very deliberate, right? And like I act without thinking all the time. Like while I'm doing this, I thought of something I did to a 10-year-old, like not anything like horrible or whatever. It would be like, but like I kind of did a because I said so moment to a 10-year-old just like last week, right?
Mhm.
And it wasn't exactly those words, right? And I would never use those words because I always say like, oh, you shouldn't say that, right? But it was a similar situation, so I have to go apologize to her right after I finish this up. But we are kind of getting towards the time, which is sad because I could probably have this conversation for another 7 hours or so. But so anyway, guys, if you've heard something that interests you, like, share, leave a comment below, tell your own story. By the way, if we are, this is supposed to be more of an audience interaction thing eventually, once we get a big enough audience,
Mhm.
hopefully when people comment or whatever, and maybe we'll even do call-ins. It'll be like a kind of a cooler, more interactive dynamic. But if you have like a longer form comment and I see it pop up, I will read it, right? So if you want to try to do something like that, feel free. That goes for this episode and any episode in the future. If you have actually like something that you want to talk about, we will read the comment live and try to react to it. Right. So, and again, you can also go to DancingDragons.CC and you can book
Mhm.
yourself an appointment to get the perfect coach for you. We have coaches that cover everything. We have coaches that do numerology, polyamory, and then normal stuff like career. And not to say those things aren't normal. Not to say those things aren't normal, you weirdos. No, we do we have executive coaching, we have relationships, we have parenting, we have anything that you could possibly want to get better at. We got it at Dancing Dragons. So go to dancingdragons.cc. Again, the CC stands for Coaching Collective. Easy to remember. Okay, so yeah, so I mean the like I can be very, very deliberate, but sometimes, you just react. You're dealing with a kid,
Mhm.
you're, they aggravate you or something kind of triggers you. Again, I don't look like it. I don't look like it. Right? I got long hair, I got like a gruffy beard, but I'm like a pretty strict person. Like I was in the army, I had a top secret clearance, I was a sergeant in the army, right? Like I have a very strict side to me, right? Which I know I don't look like it, right? So like there are certain times when like I just that emotional part of my personality, I'll just be like, no, like that's it. Like this, I gotta
Mhm.
put my foot down. And so I'll do things that are like now in hindsight, literally having this conversation, I'm like, oh, that was a mistake, right? And it caused like a big
Mhm.
problem. Like there was like a big like butting of heads that night because I did that. Literally just because I did that, like not thinking, and now I realize, oh, that was my bad. So so what I would say is that like as parents, we can always do better and always like
Yep.
learn more, right? So again, we're not trying to throw shade at anybody. I've made mistakes with kids. I'm sure Jeff's made mistakes with
Oh
kids. I'm
my
sure he's not
gosh,
afraid
yes.
to say that. Everybody's made
So
mistakes
many.
with kids, right? learning to get better and just trying to do better than we did yesterday and learning to do better than before. That's actually funny that you had mentioned that whole legacy thing, because I often think in those terms, right? Like I'm always like,
That's
well, as
cool.
long as I do better than my parents, I'm like above water, right? Like, you know, that's a good way to not get stressed out that you're messing up your kid, because every parent feels that way. Every parent thinks
Oh
that
gosh, yeah.
I'm gonna totally screw this one up, and it's a horrible thing to think about because you love them so much.
Yep.
You love them so much, and you're like, no, I can't mess this one up. I gotta, and so you get stressed out, and then that means that you don't react as well as you want to because you overthink. And that's similar to the problem I caused the other night. So there you go. So anyway, what I did want to talk about real quick, because it is the title of the video and we haven't really talked about too much, is permissiveness. I've mentioned it a little bit, right? And so permissive is when you just let your kids do whatever they want, right? And you don't have any kind of discipline or standards. Now, I get it. People have convinced you over the years, if you're sitting at home listening to this, you're like, what are you talking about discipline? You said that I can't hit my kids. There's no such thing as discipline after that. And it's like, So I'll tell you something, right? The military is known for discipline. And it is true, they do hit you sometimes. But technically, the rule says that they're not allowed to. It is true they do, but technically, the rules say they're not allowed to. Right. And I hear probably since I've been out of the military, they're probably a little bit more strict about that. Right. But again, even in the military, they don't hit you often when they do hit you, and they don't hit you too much. Right. But the point is that obviously, if you're in the military and discipline is like the number one thing, right? And the rule is they're not allowed to hit you, then discipline can be something else. Right. So it's about setting up guardrails. Right. It's about setting up like there are other ways to stand your ground other than fighting people, right? And you know this because you go to work and you stand your ground at work, and you're not punching your coworkers in the face and having a giant battle royale, right? To instill discipline and to set up boundaries, right? You can set up boundaries. So a good example of this, right? I was with these two Haitian girls I didn't know very well, right? They're two of my step godchildren, right? One is 8, one was 9, the other one was 11, right? And we went down to the beach. I live next to the beach. We walked down to the beach, right? And so their family's at my house. I knew them a little bit, like we had known each other for a few months, right? But they had just found out that I did not hit kids, right? And so now we're at the beach and they got me by myself, right? They don't have their Haitian family overlooking, making sure that they're not doing anything, right? They got the guy who doesn't hit kids by himself, right? And so now they're like, okay, we're going to really, like, so they're trying to get it so, like, we cannot go back to the house. Like, they're like, no, we're just not going to listen to you. Like, you keep saying it's time to leave, and we're just not going to do that, right? And so they're being like every single time we're about to leave, like one of them would go run into the water or something or whatever, right? And so then I was just like, all right, that's it. So now I had made a bet with them the week prior, and I owed them $5 each. I owed them $5 each. I forgot what the bet was. I don't even remember what the bet was, but I had made a bet and I had owed them $5. But I had told them, right? Like I told them, hey guys, we're going to leave in like 10 minutes, right? So that's what you always do with kids. Again, we could have hours and hours of this conversation on how to deal with kids, but setting up like, hey guys, in 10 minutes, we're going to leave. You don't just say, hey, we're leaving right now. I mean, you can, it's going to cause problems, right? So like I always like set up before like, hey guys, like in 10 minutes, we got to get out of here. Okay. And they're like, yeah, okay, deal. Whatever. Right. So then I was like, so they wouldn't leave. And I was like, hey guys, if we don't start walking back to my house right now, I'm not going to give you the $5 I owe you. And they were like, that's not fair. You made a deal. And I was like, it is fair because you are telling me that you don't listen to deals. Like we agreed that we would leave in 10 minutes. So if you don't have to hold up your side of deals, I don't have to hold up my side of deals. If that's the way that you want to have our relationship, I don't have to do anything I tell you because you don't do anything that you tell me. So there you go. And then they were both like, okay, let's go right now. But like just showing them that kind of negotiation, it's like, listen, like this is a two-way street. Like if you want me to do things that you want me to do, then you got to do things that I want you to do. Like that's just how it works. This is a negotiation. And I could tell just like they both got so excited about that. Like you would think that they'd be mad that we had to leave the beach. No, like you could see they were both gleaming walking back. There was like a new idea of parenting to them. Like they were like, this is like reciprocal. Like this is like we're almost like equal people to him. Like they were like literally giddy walking back, and they were like, oh, and they were like jumping on me, and they were like, like they were so happy that they were with me after that. Like they were just like, oh my God, like this guy's fantastic. And it was not me doing something that they didn't want, right? But just the idea that the way I did it was just a totally new way of like parenting to them. They were like in seventh heaven walking back to my house. So anyway, I just thought that was like, so like that's like a way that you can be strict, right? And again, there are other ways. Sometimes you got to get creative with it. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I'm racking my brain. Like sometimes I'll literally like call my my wife, my sister. I'll like call my wife aside and I'll be like, look, I'm in a pickle because I said this, but now I can't do that because of this. So like we got to come up with some kind of solution. Like, like sometimes I have to plan out, and sometimes I back myself into a corner, right? So I don't know. Jeff, did you have anything to say before we get out of here? We are coming up on an hour, so I don't want to hold you too long.
No,
but anyway, I thought that I'd throw that out as like, there's a difference. You can still be strict without being violent.
Yes, I will say there's a consistency and accountability, and that's what you're just holding them accountable. Discipline is like a level of accountability, and that's what we're really just trying to teach our kids, to be accountable to ourselves. What a lot of my kids struggle with ADHD. So like one thing we did was create a chart and be like, okay, because your mind is scattered everywhere, we need to find ways for you to be accountable. I can't stress you on it because you can't manage it. So we're going to help you with that accountability by understanding how your morning should work. So I love that idea. Even if it's not a kid that struggles with some type of thing like that, holding people accountable. And most people want to be held accountable.
No, there is a kind of a disrespect from low expectations. Like it's like open disrespect to have low expectations for people. And we can see it in many different aspects in society. Happens all the time. It's something that like, especially like my whole life, I've always worked with or volunteered for like disabled communities. My niece has Down syndrome and stuff, and they get slighted by low expectations all the time. It's like, it's like, bro, like they're in a wheelchair. Like that doesn't mean that you have to like do everything in the whole world for them. Like it's weird.
Yeah.
You're acting weird right now. And it's, or like, like, it's like, there's a dignity when somebody holds their own, there's a dignity. And that is something I've been told. I don't know this for a fact. I could be wrong. So let me know in the comments section if I'm wrong here, but I don't think I am. But like when you're in a nursing home, right? My wife's a nurse. And when you're in a nursing home, they tell you, don't do anything for the patients that they can do themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And this is a very important end of life thing because there's a dignity that gets stripped when you do things for people that they can do themselves. Right. And so same thing with kids. It's like, I think that, again, I could talk about this topic for so many hours. It's not even funny. But there is, just to drop like a little thing, maybe we could do a future episode on it or something like that. There is like a large amount of indignity that we do with kids, where we try to like separate them. Like, oh no, you're a kid. Like, we're cleaning right now. You just go watch the TV. Like you can't be around these chemicals, or you can't be around this stuff. And it's like, yeah, you want to protect your kid, right? But like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is one of my favorite shows of all time. It's so sad that they're not doing the remake. They're going to do like a reboot of it or something like that. But anyway, at one point, like she has like basically a foster kid at one point, and then she says like that, like this big culmination of it at the end of the season or whatever. She's like, I've been trying to protect you from the world when really it was my job to show you the world, right? And that's really the I know it's kind of goofy. I'm using a Buffy the Vampire Slayer quote here, but like it's true. It's just so true. And like I watched that before I was 18, you know, so like that has probably like that quote. Joss Whedon, man, he's a fantastic writer. That quote like has really stuck with me, right? And it's like that is the core of parenting. It's like if you protect your kid from the world, they're not going to be ready for it, right? And so you gotta when your kid's doing something dangerous, it's okay as long as you're supervising them. That's the time for them to do things, right? And like I'm like always there's some racial things I won't get into because like I'm the only white guy in my family, right? Like everybody's black, right? So like they often like make jokes about like, oh, this is how white people do it. It's like, no, that's how I do it. That's not how my mom did it. I can promise you that, right? Yeah. So we don't have to get into like that. Again, diversity is our strength, everybody. There's but yeah, so I'm a part of very funny conversations. And so but the point is that it's like I will always be like they'll be like, oh my God, like Adriel, my son's name is Adriel. Like Adriel has a pen. I'll be like, yeah, I know. I'm watching him. But take it away from him. I'm like, no. Like, because every time he goes to put it in his mouth, I tell him, no biting, no biting. So he knows, like, he's only 1 year old. But it's like, now's the time for him to have a pen. Because if my back's turned and he picks up a pen and he's never had that experience before, he's going to stick it in his mouth. But I'm teaching him not to. Like, my son was climbing up and down stairs at like 6 months old. Right? Like, and it's like, and everybody was freaking out about it. They'd be like, oh, like, this is what white people do. I'm like, no, this isn't what white people do. This is what I do. Right? I'll be like, no. Like, but I was like, no, because he's learning. Like, one day I might have my back turned and he might find his way up the stairs. And then what's going to happen? He's not going to know how to walk up and down the stairs. He's going to fall down. But right now I'm spotting him and he's learning how to go up and how to go down. And so now if he gets on the stairs, I don't have to freak out and be so worried. It's just like, okay, like I approach him calmly so he doesn't get too excited and fall backwards or something. But it's like since 6 months old, like he goes up and down the stairs all by himself. Like, and everybody thought I was crazy for doing that. But now, like, if he's on the stairs, nobody's really that exercised about it because it's like, oh, he knows how to do that, right? It's the same thing with everything that you do with your kids. It's like the time to show them is early. As long as you can supervise them, make sure that they can learn how to do it safely. And again, I'm not going to teach my son at the age of 1 how to cut vegetables, right? That's not the time to do it. But there's a certain time when you can start teaching your young kids how to cut vegetables with a knife, as long as you're there and you're making sure it's safe, right? And then that way you don't have to freak out if they ever find a knife, right? Because, hey, you already taught them how to use one. All right, so I'll leave it at that, everybody. It was great talking to you, Jeff. I thought that this was fantastic. I could talk to you about parenting all day. So this is really great. I thought that the vibe was really cool. Like, share, and comment, guys. And remember, go to DancingDragons.CC. Get the coach that will get you to where you want to go in life. Well, we got all different kinds of coaches. So remember to be excellent to each other, everybody. Peace out.
See ya.